Welcome back, guys, to the last episode of unit testing, on which is unit test 103. So today we're gonna be dealing with the behavior of an interface. Normally when you build a part of an application, let's say you are supposed to be dealing with one specific portion of the application, you get to the point where you don't have the whole implementation of a specific code. Let's say, for example, there's a chance you don't be having an implementation of the repository on which is the one that communicates with the database. So you have to know the interface so that you can mark that interface behavior so that you can complete your task. Let's say, for example, when you save something on the database, you expect your repository to have a function called save, and then probably you might provide an object, and then it will save that particular object to the database. And in this case, we don't have the actual implementation of that save method. Meaning, you're going to have to do what? You're going to have to create your own fake behavior of that particular method. That's why we do have mock. So today, this is what it's going to be about. So we're going to be creating a mock object, and then from that mock object, we're going to set up, meaning we're going to be providing a behavior in order for us to complete our test. Without any waste of time, on the screen I do have a transaction saves test, on which it does have test function called custom mock behavior, because as I've said, you're going to be dealing with customizing the behavior of a particular function. Now, as I've said, sometimes it gets to the point where we want to save some things to the database, meaning we want the behavior, we want to, basically it's the behavior of how specific function works. And then, as I've said, since we don't have the actual implementation of the whole code, you're going to have to create our own code, just our own behavior on how we want that thing to work. In this video, I'm going to be creating an interface called iRepository, on which will be a repository on which it communicates with the database. And then that iRepository, we're going to make it have a function called save. And then we will customize, or we will create our own custom behavior for that function called save. I'll be creating, I'll create scenarios for those, for a function that returns something, and then the other one that does not return anything, so that you understand everything, so that you can be able to create your own custom behaviors for whatever interface or functions you want to do for. Okay, without any waste of time, let's just jump into this thing. So we do have a class. On top of this thing, I'm going to be creating an interface, on which this interface is going to be called iRepository. And then iRepository, we're going to make it have a function called save. At the first scenario, we'll make it not return anything. Okay, now let's start this thing. So it's a public interface. Okay, interface. So we're gonna make it have a void function called save. And then now when we come here, we're gonna now mock up the behavior of the save function. So we do have a save function on iRepository does have a function called save, right? But in our test function, let's say we want to use that save function, but we don't have the behavior of that thing. Then we'll have to do what? We'll have to create the mock, or we'll have to create a fake behavior for that particular function. Let's just do that now. But before that, we're going to have to create an object, or a mock object of type repository. Let's do that. So we're going to have something called mock, and then I'm going to do iRepository. Yep. And then I'm just going to call it mock repository. Let's come in. So you can just come to this bulb, and then you'll see something called install package mock. So mock is the one that is going to be enabling us to create this mock of this fake object on which we can create our own custom behavior. Now let's do that. As you can see, now it's using mock. Let me try to see if I can zoom. So as you can see, like here now it's using mock. Okay, now let's continue with the last part of this thing. Okay, now, so we do have an object called mock repository. So now we're going to be doing what we're going to be setting up the behavior. To do that, it's pretty simple. You're going to just be doing mock repository. You're going to be setting up. So as we set up, here it says that it does take an expression. And this expression, it's a lambda expression that specifies the expected method invocation. Meaning it can't take like a function that it will be invoked. And then we realize that this function, it takes what? It takes a repository. Meaning the first object that is going to be passed will be of type I repository. So I'm just going to call it repository and then do something like this. And then repository. Since this will be the object of type I repository. And then remember something, we want to execute the function called save. So we do have this function called save. And then yeah, that's it. This is how we customize our own behavior. But in this case, there's pretty much nothing. When we execute this function, nothing will actually happen because it is just like a function that is pretty much empty. But I want us to cover some few things. If we go back to the function, to this part, we realize this is void, right? And then sometimes we know that specific functions do have return types. They might return some specific data or objects. But in this case, they are void, meaning they don't return anything. But there's also a possibility for us to create a callback. A callback is considered to be a function that gets executed within another function. Meaning it's a function that can be passed as a parameter to another function. And then the main function that receives that callback will invoke or execute that function within the code. But keep in mind that a callback is a function that does not have a return type. So now let's move on to this thing. So we can create our own callback. Let's try to see if we can understand what is happening. Okay, specifies a callback to invoke when method is called. Meaning when we call save, this function that we're going to we are creating now, it will be invoked. Yeah, pretty much that's it. So this overload is intended to be used in scenarios involving generic type. Okay. That's not what we, okay. So now let's create our function, our callback function. This is the function that will be executed within save. Meaning when save gets called, save will invoke callback function or whatever function that we're going to be creating here. Right. So this is the function that we're going to be creating. Right. So since we don't have console, we're going to have to do something. So I think we should do something like string. Let's create it to be. So we're going to be creating a string that the name of the string is going to be changed by mock repository. Reason being is that I want to show you that I can change the value of the variable that I'm creating right now within the callback function. How? By just executing save function. You'll see that just now. So to be changed, let me just say within callback function, and then we'll just say change layers or something like yeah. So now we have to be changed to customer. It is changed. Yeah. So now we're gonna do our asset dot equal So it is so to be changed. Okay, let me try to explain what is actually happening here. The value of to be changed at the beginning is change me, right? And then if I'm ever going to be executing this function, we expect this value to change to it is changed. Let me try this. So you can see that here it just says it is changed. Okay, so now let me zoom in a bit. Yeah, I hope you can all see now. It is changed. Okay, so now we're gonna be executing this function called save. To do that, we're gonna call that multi-repository object, and then we're gonna say object dot save. This is how easy it is to just create your own behavior. So in somewhat, what we have done is that we have created an object, a mock object called mock repository, and then we have specified the behavior for what? For save, on which when you call save or when you execute save, what is going to happen is that we have created a callback function, on which this callback function, all it does is just change the text or the value of this variable. That's all. When we execute this test, we expect this thing to be true, meaning expect it to pass, because this thing will no longer be change me, but it will be this thing. And then since this thing will be this thing, that means this thing is close to this thing. Pretty much simple. So now let's run all our tests and see what is actually happening. Whether we can expand our tests and see this actually happening. Switch on, okay, as you can see. So all our tests have managed to pass. Okay, let's close this. So we have managed to pass. The tests have managed to pass. Okay, so now it gets to the point where like now we have to move to the next part. We realize that this function does not have a return type. So if it doesn't have a return type, we know that most of the times our functions do have return types. And then we're going to have to configure them to return a specific thing if we create a mock object. Now let's make this one return a string. We can make it return any type. Now, since we expect, when we execute save, we expect it to return something, and it should be of type string. But in this case, we have not set it up to return anything. What we're going to do is we're going to, okay, let's just create a string. Let's call it received. And then let's say, let's debug basically. Can we debug this thing and see what is happening? Test, debug all tests. We want to see what is going to be happening actually. So we have not set anything to be returned when we were setting up this thing. That's why it returned none. None is for this thing. So let's remove the breakpoint. So now, okay, we can just leave the breakpoint and then assign something to this thing. As I've said at first, if you remember correctly, we did create a callback on which is a function that gets executed after we have executed save. Now we question, how do we create a return? So now we're going to be doing returns, on which now we specify whatever value that we want this thing to return. Let's just make it hello. Okay, let's make it, let's say, let's cut it to testing on it, put it, yeah, let's save. So now we're gonna take this value. Actually, no need, we'll just debug this thing. I was planning to do some asset, but it will just be a waste of time. Let's just do it as well. Let's see what is actually happening. Let's hit the breakpoint and see if. So now it is close to null. So now let's step over. And then if we cancel the unit, okay, we're gonna need a bigger thing to show me this. I'm not so sure if I can do that. So can I zoom more than this so that you see where is it? No, you can't. How do I do that? Okay, I'm not so sure you can see. Let's just make it as I said this thing so that if it's, and then we're gonna need it to see it. That means we don't need a breakpoint. So now we're gonna be testing. Okay, let's stop this test. No test. Okay, so we expect this one to pass, right? Because they expected this thing should return this thing, and then we'll store it in here and then check if it has passed. Perfect. So now we understand how to specify or how to configure our return type and how to configure another function that can be executed when we call the original function. That is pretty exciting about this thing. Now, the last part of this thing will be about providing a parameter. Functions, let's be honest, most of the time they do take some arguments within them. In this case, our function does not take anything. We might make it, we should actually, it's a must for us to make it take something because it's just for educational purposes, right? So let's do that. So we're gonna make a string called what? Let's just call it data. Yeah, so that is good. Can we close this thing? Okay, as we can see, we do have some red squiggly lines that tells us that this thing requires what? Some arguments to be provided. So there is no arguments that given that corresponds to the required parameter data of. Okay, no problem. So that means we need to provide what? Some arguments. But in this case, when we set up, we don't necessarily provide the actual value, but we set up the type that needs to be provided when we execute this particular function. Meaning, whatever we configure here, we configure the type to be provided here. We don't actually provide the value. And then to provide the type, what we do, we do it dot is all string on which it's a function. So what is actually happening here is that it is a function on which it ensures, it matches actually that whatever type or value that has been provided within this function at this point should be any string. As long as it's of type string, this thing doesn't have a problem with it. It will just work. Let me just remove all these things. This thing will work. So now we can provide our string. Let's just say my high tech. Yeah. So where was this? So this one is no longer. Okay. So now we can. Okay. Let's go back again. So we did talk about a callback, right? So now we're gonna be using that callback function, and then we're gonna be. Oh, it's gonna be interesting. So here we configure that whatever value that you provide should be of type string, right? So we can also configure our callback to accept or take whatever value that is being passed to this function, to our callback, meaning our callback will have access to that value. Now, we provide Mahoitek through this thing, right? And then we want our callback function to take this thing and then change the value of this thing to this thing. Let's do that. So we're gonna do our callback again. Our callback. So here we can specify what type on which this callback expects, on which we will make it a string. And then here we'll just specify whatever we're doing, on which is to be, all can be equals to name. Okay, let's say call it date, so that it matches the or. Okay, now let me explain. What is actually happening here is that we did specify the type to be provided here, right? And then now we move here. We say whatever you provide, whatever data that you provide here, whatever argument that you provide here, pass it to the callback, and then the callback will accept it. And then the callback says, okay, it should be of type string. But the question is, what if here this thing says it will be of type string, but here we want an int? What do you think is going to happen? Let's check. So let's say what? Actually, I can just do something like this. So this thing expects what? An int, and then this one expects. Can we just let's just call here, let's say this thing. Then let's try to, I'm not so sure if this thing was gonna run, or I don't want to check something. If it will have a problem, because here we said we want to receive type integer, right? But here we said whatever you provide, it should be of type string. What is it gonna be provided? Okay, yeah, so setup on method with parameter string cannot invoke callback. So I'm not so sure you'll be able to see what is happening here. So it says it says setup on method with parameters string. So setup on this method with parameter string cannot invoke callback with parameter and integer. Meaning this callback does have what, a parameter of type integer, and this function cannot invoke this thing because this thing was expecting what, an integer, but no integer was provided there. So that's the pretty downside of things there, right? So yeah. So now since it's an integer, since it's a straight to string, I can just delete this thing, and then let's run the test again and see what is actually happening. So our test managed to pass because whatever we expect from here, the type that we expect from here, is the same type that our callback expects. Everything makes sense now. And then, yep, that's pretty much it, guys. That is pretty much. I don't know what else would we want. Okay, so we can check it forever, but this one we've done it already. So I feel like this is just the end of this video, but I'll just do it anyway. So we will accept something. We don't have a return type. First of all, we have not specified in a return, and I feel like we should just leave. Okay, let's just configure our return. What do you want to return? The returns. Okay, so it's our return. Specify the function that will cut. Okay, now let's see something. Can we do name and name? Is it possible? It's not possible. Because what? Because name is not part here. Can? Oh, it just expects a string. What? We cannot do any function because this thing just expects to return a string. I'm not so sure if it's possible though. I'll have to do some diggings on that one. Is it possible to? I doubt. Let's just say follow them. And then, but for this purpose, I want to check if forever this value will be changed with this one. And I'm gonna do that. So it's okay. So I said that equal 1 and then we're gonna be comparing to each containers there. Let's run our tests. Okay, our test when is to pass, meaning this veil has been provided here, and then we changed this veil with this veil. So that's pretty much it. Okay guys, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next upcoming videos. Cheers.